She's usually pretty good with Zoom, but okay, friends, welcome. I'm Rabbi Michael Satz, and welcome to Social Justice: The Heart of Judaism in Theory and Practice. Thank you to Rhonda Lilienthal, who's what's your official title, Rhonda?
I direct the Melton School of Metro West and the Center for Jewish Life for JCC Metro West.
Very nice. Well, thank you. And so this is a course through the Melton School, which is I think an amazing adult ed program around the world. And this is my third Melton course that I'm teaching. I've taught in Toronto, and then I taught here a class here at Temple B'nai Or, and then this is another one that we're doing. And thank you, of course, to Mary Fernandez, our congregant at Temple B'nai Or, who has helped organize this course and all the Melton courses at TBO, and who keeps me on track, and is our vice president for education. And so welcome everybody. So I think what we'll do first is let's introduce ourselves, and then also say what drew you to this course. Why this course specifically? So I'll start first. I'm Rabbi Michael Satz. I'm the rabbi at Temple B'nai Or. I've been here for a year and a half now, or almost a year and a half. But what drew me, well, I'm teaching the class, but what drew me to teach the class, I had a conversation with Mary, I don't know, was it months ago, maybe over the summer, maybe it was even in the spring, I can't remember, thinking about adult ed offerings and how Melton is a wonderful program. But then we were looking through the Melton courses, and this course, of course, popped up as it really speaks to essential issues of our time. And it's something that I have been, well, teaching Jewish texts is something I'm very passionate about, but also social justice from a Jewish perspective. And I hope that through learning, I really felt that through learning the text will give us the inspiration to do good work in the world, but do good work as Jews. And it gives us the sense of mission as Jews, not that doing good work as good people is wrong. No, that's of course right. But doing it as Jews gives us a different sense of community, a different sense of purpose, and a sense of service to God. And that's what really drew me to this course. So I'm going to go, I'm on the top row in the middle on my screen. So I'm going to go counterclockwise. And so Jen, why don't you go?
Hi, I'm Jen Harder. I'm Jane's sister, and she's in the bottom of my screen. I don't know where she is on yours. And I don't know, social justice has been an idea that has been important to me for several years. I've been to Black Lives Matter rallies and things like that. So the course sounded interesting after she told me about it.
Very good, thank you. And next is well, Rhonda, you want to go?
You know, I hadn't really thought about it, but as you're speaking, one of my favorite verses in the Torah in Genesis is where God says that God loved Abraham, or God chose Abraham because of his qualities of tzedek umishpat, of righteousness and justice. So it seems like from the very beginning, these issues of justice are so important to God, and part of why God partnered with us and part of our mission on earth. So I think it behooves us to learn more about it.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, just going, so now I'll go across. Charlotte, your turn.
Hi, I was very interested in this course because I think it parallels everything I have done in my life, and it will be interesting to see it in a different light than I have seen it by using the Jewish text.
Good. Very nice. All right, Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary. Rabbi kind of already introduced me. So part of the reason I'm here is because we worked together on selecting this course for adult education. And also, I took the Foundations of Jewish Family Living with Rabbi over the past 2 years. He taught it the second year. And the Melton experience was, I found it very profound, a very profound way to study and to learn. And I really enjoyed the process. And so I was excited to study a new subject using the Melton methodology. And of course, the timeliness of this subject in our country, in our world. So.
Thank you. Good. Let's go, I'm going to go down. Tanya, your turn.
Hello, I'm Tanya Simon, and I have been interested in active in social justice from my whole life. My parents did a lot of things with us when we were younger, and I am currently the co-chair of social action at Temple B'nai Or. And I've never done this through or even really considered the Jewish concept behind it. It was more from a social perspective without context of religion, but I'm anxious and I'm excited to learn about it, like Charlotte said, from a Jewish perspective, and hoping that it will help me and my co-chair, who's also taking a class, in learning and maybe improving and expanding upon our program at Temple.
Wonderful. Jane.
Hello, I'm Jane. I just more and more in the past couple of years, it's always been something that is important to me, but I think my eyes have been opened more in the past 4 years or so to how unjust society can be, especially in this country, along with others, but I'm seeing it in this country that I hadn't known. It always existed, I just wasn't aware. And so becoming aware it's making me want to do more than what I've done before. And so I just want to learn more about what else I can do and how to do it.
Good. Very nice.
I think you're muted, Rabbi.
I did that on accident, by accident. So Vicky, your turn.
Vicky, you're muted too.
No, should we come back to you? Okay, so good. Nancy, are you there? We're introducing ourselves and why we're taking this class.
The camera's not working. It was a little frustrating. Sorry. I'm putting my toe in the water. I'm not sure if I'm going to take this, but I appreciate you opening this first session. I am on Tanya's Social Action Committee, and I'm very interested in, as she said, the Jewish approach to that. Although I feel like I've always lived it, but I'm sure I can learn more. The more I learn I don't know. So thank you.
Thank you. Now, Vicky.
The mute button.
The mute button's on your screen. Right?
Top right corner.
Or
Or
bottom.
you can hold down the space bar.
bottom left, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it won't let her unmute for some reason.
Really?
And she's clicking it. Rabbi, can you try unmuting and see if like by you
No, I can only ask to unmute.
you only ask to
The
unmute?
host could mute people but can't unmute people.
Oh, I see. Huh.
I don't know. There you go.
Oh, there she goes.
Yeah, you go.
Now she's to connect to audio. Okay, great.
So we have to be patient when we have Zoom. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patient with
Okay.
everything.
Can Vicky type it in the chat or something?
Yeah, you can type in the chat if you want to. Okay. So while Vicky's introducing herself, and I'll read it out when it comes. Tonight we're going to do lesson one, which has a lot of definitions. We're going to talk about different kinds of terms. So the name of the course is social justice. So I want us to think about, what does social justice mean? I don't want to answer it yet. I think someone, maybe Tanya, said oh, we missed Mark too. I'm sorry, Mark. Why don't you go while Vicky's introducing herself? I'm sorry about that, Mark.
Hey guys, so my name is Mark. I'm a conversion student under Rabbi Satz. And I took like an intro to Judaism course from like March to September, which was obviously right during like the George Floyd incidents and all of that. And so while we were talking about, learning about holidays and learning about customs and values, we had, all of that. So a lot of us in the class were sort of asking, how do you feel about this? And how do we feel as Jews about this? So it got me very interested in social justice. So when I heard about this course, I was really interested in it. So that's why I decided to take it.
Good. All right. So as I was saying, we're going to talk about a lot about different kinds of definitions tonight to set the pace for the rest of the course. And as you notice, and we'll talk about at the end when the different dates are, but it's not always consistent during the month. It's based on kind of what's happening during the month. So it's not every week, but there are 10 different lessons. And so what is social justice? Maybe we'll try to define that through the night. I think it was Tanya mentioned social action. Is there a difference between social justice and social action? We're going to talk about tzedek, tzedakah, right? Rhonda mentioned tzedek and mishpat, right? We're going to talk about that. We'll talk about chesed. We'll talk about tikkun olam. And what are the different nuances of these words? What do these words mean? I guess they're Hebrew words, but we'll try to dig into it. But first, what I want to do is really jump into one of the texts that will give us a good vocabulary and a good kind of background. And then we're going to do an exercise, okay? So if you have the book or if you have the PDF of the first lesson, does everybody have that? Yes, everybody has the PDF of the first lesson, great. So I'm not going to share it on the screen, but if someone doesn't, then I will share it on the screen. So speak up now if you don't have. Okay, so good. So what we're going to do is we're going to read text number 1. So turn to your first lesson and go to text number 1 in the lesson. But if you don't have the PDF, Mary just said she'll email it to you, okay? Does everybody see text number 1? So, you with me? Yeah, all right. So text number 1 is from Rabbi Dr. Aryeh Cohen, who is a professor at Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies, which is at the American Jewish University, which is in Los Angeles, and there's a conservative rabbinical school there, which is the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies. So he's a contemporary rabbi. Someone like to read this text, and I may stop you and we'll discuss, okay? Please, Mark.
Okay, all right. My interest is in articulating a theory or narrative of how people move from the couch to recognizing an injustice to doing something about it. There are two distinct moments. The first I'll call the moment of righteous indignation. There is a great word for this in the rabbinic tradition, teromet. The word teromet shares a root for the word for thunder, ra'am.
Taromet.
A what?
Taromet.
Taromet.
Yeah.
Good to know. Taromet. The word taromet shares a root with the word for thunder, ra'am. Taromet is the reaction which is sanctioned by a court when a person has been harmed in a way that is not legally actionable, and yet she has been morally wronged. Taromet, or righteous rage, does not carry with it any legal remedy, aside from communal vindication in one's outrage. In a culture in which there is a shared morality, this is not an insignificant matter, and might even lead to an offending party making restitution in some manner. However, that restitution is not enforceable by a court. Therefore, righteous indignation.
Okay, so let's talk about this. When you hear the term righteous indignation, what do you think? In a Jewish context or not, like in a regular context, if you hear the term righteous indignation, what does that make you think?
I think of Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Why so?
I just feel like she did things that just when she found things were wrong,
Mm-hmm.
she would fight for them.
Right.
With whatever she could fight for.
Right. So it's not just railing against injustice. It's actually trying to take steps to do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it starts with, you said when she felt something was wrong, it starts with an emotional response, right? You feel the emotional response and then you do something about it, right? So I like the term righteous indignation because it's different than just anger. Anger is usually, when we think of the word anger, it's usually unhelpful, right? It doesn't, the actions that come from anger are usually bad, right? But righteous indignation might start from the same emotion, but it has this connotation of doing something positive, right? Here, we're going to take a break. I'm going to introduce Vicky, if I have your permission. If she put in the chat, or Vicky. My name is Vicky, and social activism has been a central focus of my life, both personally and academically. In college, I studied religious action and civil rights movements. My interest in Judaism stemmed from this path of study. I'm a conversion student and looking forward to joining you all in discussion. There you go. Thank you. So good. So now let's think. Let's continue thinking about this righteous indignation to Roman. Keep going, Mark.
Okay. The contemporary occurrence of taromet is the moment when you recognize that your understanding of justice has run up against an immoral situation. When workers are legally paid a salary so low that they cannot afford to feed and shelter themselves. When workers are treated in such a way as to impact their dignity. When straight people can marry but gay folks cannot. When undocumented immigrants and their children are exploited for their work but are disenfranchised politically and ultimately criminalized. In whatever issue, taromet, righteous indignation, occurs when you are forced to compare your understanding of justice with the reality of a situation, and you find that the reality does not stand up to scrutiny. You are then moved to indignation or even rage, legitimately.
Right? So we have here a sense of there's justice and there's law, which are not always the same thing, right? And we have the sense of the way things ought to be versus the way things are, right? In philosophy, they say it's the is-ought conflict, right? Okay. Keep comments. Nope. Keep going.
At this moment, you are faced with the next question. What am I to do about this? The answer to this question can be anything from nothing through clicking on an email to joining a demonstration, to voting, to participating in an act of civil disobedience. Deciding to take that action is the "here I am" moment. Here I am is Moses' answer to God's call from the burning bush. The biblical Hebrew Hineni?
Hineni. Yeah, Hineni.
Hineni is a contraction of two words. The first, hine, is a word that signals presence or presentation. Often it is used to signal a scene change in biblical narrative. The second is ani, or I, me. The French Jewish philosopher Emmanuel Levinas has suggested that the statement hineni signals an opening of oneself to the other. Here I am to respond to your suffering. The hineni, or here I am moment, is the moment at which you realize that the jarring dissonance between the reality of an injustice and the demands of justice comprise an obligation for you to act. The hineni moment is the move from, wow, this sucks, someone should do something, to I am one of the people who have to do something.
Good. Comments, questions?
Excellent.
Excellent. Okay, good. I'm going to ask it. What are the issues that make you feel righteous indignation? We can, there's a small group, we can say them out loud, or if you want to, put it in the chat. Mary.
Actually, one of the ones that was there, which is to be the working poor.
Yeah, right.
People who go to work every day and can't put enough food on the table or pay rent or, take care of their families or have adequate, all of those reasons. And yeah, and I find righteous indignation in that.
Right, that a minimum wage is not, people who have minimum wage jobs are not teenagers with summer jobs, right? They're people who are trying to support families, right? And the minimum wage is not a working wage, or not a living wage, sorry, right? Good.
The ability for any two people who love each other to be married, because marriage has certain implications, like a loved one in the hospital and you have to be family to see them. It's not just the ceremony, it's the privileges that go with that.
Good. So, right. So gay marriage, which is legal in America, but maybe not as protected as we thought it was a few years ago. But also, I would say, how about gay rights in general? Good. Okay. Others.
I'm deeply troubled by the unequal enforcement of laws and police powers, and the driving while black syndrome that's happening. That of course crosses way beyond driving, but it's across our entire society. Unequal treatment of people based on the color of their skin, or even who they love. It's just same thing. There needs to be a balancing and accountability.
Very nice. Good. Others.
The way immigrants at the border are being treated.
Totally.
Yeah. Good.
And one nation under God. That phrase is on our coins. It's like, and it's not true.
Okay. Good. Others.
I'm agreeing with everything everybody said. But I'm also adding that, and I don't know if this is righteous indignation or what it is. It might just be anger, but I'm not sure. The idea that there are lots of people that don't seem to see any of this.
Yeah.
It makes me feel something. I don't know what exactly, but.
So kind of people people's I don't know what the right word
People's
is.
indifference or
Indifference, yeah.
just unaware, like,
Yeah.
or denial of any of it.
Right. Yeah. Right. Right. And part of it is maybe our unwillingness to listen to someone else's experience, right?
Mhm.
You know, when I'm trying not to get too partisan here, but when you know, like a politician would say, "Well, America's not racist," right? And then you could say, "Well, yes, you know, America's made huge strides in the last 50 years, especially." But that's saying I'm not listening to people's experience of racism, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, good. So it goes down to not being able to see, to try to feel someone. We can never feel someone's experience, but try to empathize with someone else's experience and
Mhm.
and see that as a reality. Good.
Right.
Responsibility on leaders and educators, schools. I'm a textbook company. We're very aware of diversity and how things might be interpreted. It goes through everything. You can't. There's a really good article I'll send everyone about. Oh, I was just joking. Well, yeah.
Right. Good. So we've talked about a few different issues, but now I'm going to ask you something specific or for us to pick one issue, because in lesson 4, I'm going to bring it. We're asked to bring in an outside speaker to talk about a local issue, local justice issue. So for me to think about who I might ask, we're just getting to know each other now, but let's, if you don't mind, let's pick one burning justice issue that affects people locally. And because I think we're going to also talk about in the course, local versus, you know, global, and how those are related and how they're different, right? So what is one issue we're going to maybe vote? So things that we talked about are racial justice, LGBT rights, and what was another issue someone meant? Immigration, right?
Poverty.
Poverty, right? Poverty,
and
good.
income inequality. Yeah.
Income inequality, good. Okay, so those are 4 good issues. So now, do we want to add another one into the bag before we start to vote?
No.
No, okay, so good. So let's, we have four issues. Let's vote. Do you mind doing it this way? Okay, so good. So let's, if you would like to, we'll talk about all of these things, of course, but if I bring in a speaker, do we want to talk about poverty? Raise your hand. Okay, poverty, 3 for poverty. Okay, immigration, refugees, things at the border. Okay, great. LGBTQ issues. Okay, and then racial justice.
I'm going to vote for that.
Okay, so we have a tie between racial and poverty. So, and you know, sometimes those are linked too. Maybe. So how about I keep it that way? Maybe we can. I could probably find someone who could speak about both of those things, kind of combined. What do you think? You think that's a good idea?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Rabbi,
Yes.
a few weeks ago, you appeared with, and his name escapes me, but with one of the reverends from town.
Oh, Sidney Williams. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason he sticks in my mind is that he alluded to the success of his children and still how he had to tell them about being careful when you drove.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that stuck in my mind that even though we don't see it,
Yeah.
it's there.
Yeah, I think he was talking specifically about his daughter, who I can't remember if she's at the Naval Academy or West Point, right?
I think Naval Academy, I think.
Yeah, so she's going to, in a few years, she will be an officer in the Navy, and has had an elite education, and yet, is still will have a very different experience with a police officer than any of us will, right?
Right.
That's what he was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
The African-American reverend who was on the panel in the,
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
yeah, okay, that's what I was thinking the same person. Good.
Yeah. Okay, good. So now what I want to do is let's continue to define terms, but I'm going to do this by showing a video. Okay. A second. Here we go. So this video is a great website called Bim Bam. It used to be called Godcast, just cute videos for little kids and families for all ages about Judaism. This is from Rabbi Danya Rutenberg, who's a great writer. I think she works now for National Council of Jewish Women. But this is a video kind of defining terms.
We all want to be helpful to people in need, but there are a lot of different things that can look like. So today we're going to talk about 3 different approaches that we can take when we try to change the world for good. For example, unfortunately, there are a lot of hungry people in the world. So one way that we could address this problem would be to give someone food. This would be an act of chesed, an act of loving kindness. It is voluntary and it's individual. That means we choose to give something over to someone else out of a feeling of personal motivation or personal connection. Other acts of chesed might involve bringing a lasagna to a friend who's just had a baby and is feeling overwhelmed, or visiting someone who's sick. It's not necessarily only for someone who has a need that is greater than your own, but it's an act of loving kindness and caring for someone else. Another way that we could help hungry people would be to donate money. Donating money in the Jewish tradition is called tzedakah, and it's obligatory. We are obligated to offer some of our financial resources to those who are in need. And it really only counts if you're giving money to people who really, really need your help.
And furthermore, the great Jewish sage Maimonides said that the highest form of tzedakah is helping a person become self-sufficient.
To take one example, to donate money to a food bank so that they could offer food to those who are in need. This money could go potentially to buy groceries, but it could also go to pay the food bank's electricity bill or rent. There's a third option though. We also could ask, why are there hungry people in the world? And what needs to change in order to make that not be the case? Do we need to reallocate money in our state or federal budget so that people who are close to poverty don't go over the edge? Do we need to pass new regulations to make housing more affordable? Do we need to raise the minimum wage so that people who are working full-time are able to actually take care of all of their needs? In what ways do racism or sexism or homophobia contribute to people falling into poverty or staying in poverty? The path of tzedek, of justice, is that of trying to create a better world by changing the systems and structures that cause inequality. To understand these systems better, take a look at this picture. In the first one, everybody has the same supports, but that doesn't mean that they can all see the ball game, because the system for keeping people out impacts different people in different ways. In the second picture, you see that everybody has the supports that they need in order to access the thing that they're trying to get. So that, at very minimum, is the tzedek perspective, is trying to change the systems so that everybody has a chance to get in. But it can go even further. Have a look at this third picture. Here, instead of making the system more accessible to everybody, they're dismantling the system entirely. The real work of tzedek is about changing systems that keep people out so that we don't even need to worry about having supports to bolster people a little bit here and a little bit there. What would this look like with regards to poverty and hunger in America? Those are the questions that tzedek asks and seeks to answer. We need people to help make sure that the needs of today are being addressed. Chesed and tzedakah are important pieces of that project. But if we don't ask why those needs are there in the first place, injustice will continue to be perpetuated. Pursuing tzedek is an essential part of our work for a more just world.
So some definitions of terms, and let's think about practical applications. So let's think they use, they showed pictures of a food pantry or a soup kitchen, right? So what would working at a soup kitchen or volunteering at a soup kitchen, what would that be using the Hebrew term? Mark, yeah.
Chesed?
Yeah, so that would definitely be chesed, because chesed means you're giving of yourself, right, towards someone else, right? And I think a soup kitchen is a great example, because you're giving of yourself, you're helping other people, you're actually seeing other people in their relationship, right? Even though it could be a very short relationship, maybe somewhat superficial, but it's still doing an act of kindness is chesed, right? And it might also be tzedakah, right? Or we say, Americanized Hebrew, tzedakah, but tzedakah, good Hebrew, which is giving of your money, right? Okay, so what we normally say is charity, but it's an obligatory charity in Jewish life, okay? So working in a soup kitchen could be chesed, could be tzedakah, right? But what would make it tzedek, right? Would the soup kitchen necessarily be tzedek, right? So what's the difference between tzedek and tzedakah, if you remember from the video?
I feel like tzedek would be, like they said, dismantling the systems that sort of cause it. So I think a lot of it is food. It's sort of addressing food inequality.
Yeah. Right.
So it would maybe be fixing the price of food or universal basic income so people can afford food.
Right. And so good. So whatever the policy, we don't need to get into a policy is what makes it politics, right? And politics are more important, right? But it's thinking about why people are poor in the first place and trying to correct that, right? And that's what justice is, the term tzedek, which means a just society, social justice, right? So we were talking about also, I brought up the terms at the beginning, social justice versus social action. Social action is getting yourself down to the soup kitchen and helping people, right? Social justice is getting yourself to Trenton to talk to the legislatures about trying to address poverty, right? You see kind of the slight difference there?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, how we're defining the difference between tzedakah, which is the charity, and tzedek, which is justice. Or mishpat, Rhonda brought up too, which is, I think, synonym often, right? Okay. And chesed also, right? Chesed is about the act of kindness that you're doing. So what are other terms that we've heard that related to this? These kinds of nuances.
Tikkun olam.
Tikkun olam, good. That's a great one. So tikkun olam, which means repairing the world, right? There are anti-tikkun olam people, not that they're against repairing the world, but they think a lot of people say we overuse this term because it doesn't always mean the same thing in Jewish tradition. That's fine, but I think it's a great term now because tikkun olam means repairing the world. And I think it talks about how you as an individual working together with other individuals, which is a community, can make a difference in making a better world, right? And I think in Jewish tradition, or many strands of Jewish tradition would talk about how the actions we do make a difference, and the actions we do should be bringing more justice into the world, right? And that's what Tikkun Olam is about. Now, I think what some Jews complain about, we'll see, if we get to that text, we'll see later, is people will substitute all of Judaism just for Tikkun Olam, right? And I will also say, you know what? Lighting candles on Shabbat and fasting on Yom Kippur and praying certain prayers at certain times, those are also Judaism and also important. So it's this course will be about social justice, but it will also be about how we find this in Jewish tradition. And just because you are marching for something with some group doesn't mean, how do we make that Jewish, right? It's not de facto Jewish necessarily, right? How do we ground it in our Jewish selves, in our Jewish life, in our Jewish texts, right?
Can I ask a question? So, I thought that was great video, and I've seen the three little kids in front of the fence before, but I'd never seen the liberation.
Right. Well, why are they standing outside of the stadium in the first place?
That one is great, but I think what I personally struggle with, having worked and volunteered in the nonprofit sector a very long time, is that Chesed and Tzedakah are under your own control.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's something that you have control over, and then you have to choose to do it. Mm-hmm. And it can make you feel good, make you feel better about yourself. You can see the results. And Tzedek, I always feel like, even today at preschool, we were talking about income inequality, and when you start to talk about policy, it's like you're hitting your head against a ceiling, and you kind of go, how many times can I hit my head before you say, I'm just going to go back to helping this one person. Mm-hmm. You have to do anyway.
Right. Yeah.
But you're never going to help everyone if you can't bust through, the ceiling that's above you. So anyway, I think that's a chronic frustration, I think, for me.
Yeah. Exactly.
For me, one of the frustrations is that we equate poverty with and we've been doing this in the conversation, with a lack of income. But there is a whole lot of reasons for poverty.
Right.
Changing the income, how much we get paid per hour, is never going to do away with poverty. I mean, there are so many factors in there, and people don't bother to find out about all those other factors. They assume that income is going to change it.
Oh, I don't know if that, right. I mean, we can get into different policy debates, but I want to keep it theoretical right now.
Well, I know that, but I just needed to add that because I think that's the kind of circular reasoning we get into. Okay.
Right. But one problem of poverty is not having enough money, right?
I'm sorry?
One problem of poverty, though, is not having enough money. But you're right. Money is
one problem.
Money is not the only solution.
So Charlotte, I agree with you. So, I think people always default to money, but I absolutely agree with you. There's
right. And so back to what you were saying, Mary, it's a systems. Tzedek is a systems issue, right?
Right.
Yeah.
In a system, you can't do alone, right?
Right.
And maybe even a system you can never solve. It might be an ongoing thing that you always try to get closer. So I like to always talk about, envision an asymptote, right? I think it's right. That's the line approaching zero that never gets to zero, if you remember from calculus class, right?
Yeah.
We might never get there. And Jewish tradition would say that's God's ultimate end of that's the world to come. That's God's job, is to ultimately get there, but we can get a little bit closer and a little bit closer, right? And that's also what I said at the beginning, the difference between is and not. And so Mary was saying she's frustrated. and good. A Jew should always be frustrated. A Jew should never be comfortable. I'll say that.
Okay, I'll
Right?
go. I'll go with that.
And so, in fact, I just wrote a Devar Torah about it the other day that's coming out next week's Torah portion with the Musar Institute, is that when you are comfortable means you are okay with the way things are. And the way things are, if you put on your justice hat, is bad.
Yeah.
There are people who live in poverty. There are people who don't have equal rights. There are people who, you know, in the richest country in the world, who we have the highest, you know, infant mortality rate and mother and, you know, maternal mortality rates. There are, you know, we are destroying the environment. You know, these are all huge issues. Sorry, Jen, I see your hand. These are all huge issues that we're never going to totally solve, but we are not free from getting involved, right? And so chesed and tzedakah are, right, individual things that you individually can control. And if you are not doing them, you're not doing good, right? But the tzedek is also something that we're called to do, but it's much harder, much more frustrating, and we need each other for it. And not only, and we as Jews in America need other groups for it too, right?
Absolutely.
Right, so we as individuals, we as a collective need other collectives, right? Okay, Jen.
And we need a government of, you know, a political.
Right, so good. So in a,
whatever.
right, so in a democracy, the government is us, right? The government is the collective, we the people, right? And so we don't outsource our government. I mean, in America today, we do kind of outsource our government, but in thinking about a democracy, you don't outsource the government, you are involved in the government, right?
Right, right.
And so that gives us as Jews a great opportunity to make our voice part of the public square, right?
That's what the RAC talks about. And
right.
Like you do a little bit and somebody else does a little bit and something gets done.
Good. Okay, Jen. You had your hand up.
I'm just going to add to your examples. The JRA that does the boxes every month,
yeah.
They used to do a total of like that may not be based on like chronic poverty, but there's a lot of sudden poverty because of COVID and what's going on right now.
Excuse me, Jen, I don't know if it's my computer or yours, but I didn't hear what you said. Could you repeat that?
You froze in the middle. So can you
I'd
go
like
again?
to hear what you have to say. Could you mind repeating that?
Sure. I was just saying that the JRA that does the box delivery, they used to do a total of 275 and they're up to 600. Yep. So there's a lot of food insecurity locally that's new and current. Right.
And so what they're doing is chesed work, right? Now, I'm not trying to denigrate what they're doing. What they're doing is important, but they're not doing the tzedek work of, you know, other organizations are doing that to say, well, what's the root cause of this? You know, people falling into poverty right now. Good. So let's.
But it is, and I just want to point out that it is JRA, but the route that I delivered to in Morristown and have for a while is all Latino people. So it's everyone. It's wonderful.
Yeah, right. Okay. So let's look at text number 3. Okay. So this comes from the Rambam, Moshe ben Maimon, also called Maimonides, is just a Greek way of saying his name. He lived, 800 something years ago mainly in Egypt. This is his great philosophical work. It comes from the Guide for the Perplexed. Someone he's talking about here about his commentary on the sayings of the fathers, which is Pirkei Avot. I don't like to call it. I think it's actually the essential sayings, but that's a different story. So someone like to read this. He's defining our terms a little bit. Okay. Anybody?
I'll read.
Tanya, go
Thank
ahead.
you. In our commentary on the sayings of the fathers, chapter 5:7, we explained the expression of hesed as denoting an excess in some moral quality. It is especially used in extraordinary kindness. Loving kindness is practiced in two ways. First, we show kindness to those who have no claim whatsoever upon us. Second, we are kind to those to whom it is due, in greater measure than is due to them. In the inspired writings, the term hesed occurs mostly in the sense of showing kindness to those who have no claim to it whatsoever. For this reason, the term hesed is employed to express the good bestowed upon us by God.
Right, so we Jews don't like this word because we think in America it sounds, or an English-speaking word, it sounds too Christian, but what's a good word for this definition?
Charity.
Great, I was thinking grace.
Oh, grace.
Grace means a gift that you receive
Right.
when you don't deserve it. That's God, right? That's what chesed means. The Christians got that word grace by defining what chesed in the Torah is. Okay.
Okay.
So first, what are we learning about chesed here?
Well, I'm not sure if I like what is said here, a sense of showing kindness to those who have no claim to it whatsoever.
Well, I mean, this translation comes from 120 years ago, right? So what does it mean? Grace is when you just do good for someone just because they're a someone, not because they did something for you. That's what it means, right?
Okay.
It's not, you're not repaying someone. So that we have the term, a phrase in Judaism called chesed shel emet, which means a true act of chesed. What is that a euphemism for? Do you know?
Blind.
No, it's for, in the Jewish funeral, you literally take the shovel and bury the person. You meaning the mourner and everybody else there. That's chesed shel emet. That's what that euphemism is for, that act. Because that's the only act you can really do without any chance of getting repaid, right? So chesed is about the love you give just because it's another person, right? Now, most things we do, because we are humans, we kind of have that motivation. Oh, if I do them a kindness, they're going to do me a kindness. It's hard to get away from that, right? Or, oh, I'm going to the soup kitchen because it makes me feel good to do something nice for someone else. Okay, that it's not bad, but the quote true chesed is just doing it because that's what God does for us, right? Okay. So Tanya, you want to keep going?
Sure. The term tzedakah is derived from tzedek, righteousness. It denotes the act of giving everyone his due and of showing kindness to every being according as it deserves.
Right. So tzedakah, as it comes down, had more to do with money, right? Okay. Here, let's read the next text and we'll see. Okay.
It sounds like tzedakah is giving everyone money or kindness that they deserve, and chesed is giving more than they deserve.
That could be it, or not because, or like whether they're poor or not, right? Or right. So tzedakah is someone who's poor deserves money because they need to live. That's what it means, right? And so, like, I'll give the example. Like in the Torah, if you are a farmer, your field, you cannot harvest the corners of your field. They are for the poor. And it's not that you're giving it to the poor, they deserve it. That's how the Torah talks about it. It is theirs, right? That's tzedakah. Right? that they are, by the fact that they are a human that needs to eat, they deserve that food, right? It's very different than I'll say an extreme, not all Americans have this ideology, but an extreme version of American ideology is you get what you deserve, right? Or you have to earn things. No, classical Jewish sources is you don't earn things like food and shelter, you deserve things, right? They are, and not only that, but you, the person who had food and shelter, are obligated to give it, right? So when we talk about classical Jewish, oh, Gail is here, oh, great. When we talk about classical Jewish sources, it's usually not about the rights like we talk about in America, it's about the obligations that you as the individual have towards another, right? Okay. So let's continue on this with an older text from the Talmud, which comes from 1700 years ago. Okay, so someone like to read text number 4.
I guess I'll read it.
Please.
Yeah, okay. To text 4, Babylonian Talmud Tractate Sukkah 49b. Our sages taught.
49b means which page it's on. Yeah.
Okay. Our sages taught acts of Hesed are superior to tzedakah in 3 respects. Tzedakah can be performed only with one's money, while acts of Hesed can be performed both with one's person and one's money. Tzedakah is given to the poor, while acts of Hesed can be performed both for the poor and for the rich. Tzedakah is given to the living, while acts of Hesed can be performed both for the living and for the dead.
Right. So I mentioned Chesed Shalemet at the cemetery that's burying someone. Right. Also, the pre-burial preparations. That is also, I would say, Chesed for a person. There's all the different laws around how we treat dead bodies. But let's talk about this, all the other things, right? So what do we see in this text? Anybody?
There's that Hesed is more universal, and
Sure.
and tzedakah is more specific, I guess.
Right. So back to what Charlotte was saying about poverty and money, right? Yes, poverty is a much bigger issue than just money, but everybody needs money, right? And so tzedakah is about that, right? And that's why, in the Jewish world, we like to use tzedakah about like, putting on a new wing of the synagogue is tzedakah. No, that's philanthropy. That's a slight different thing. And that's also needed. But tzedakah, in its most narrow sense, is getting charity to the people who deserve it, right? Or who need it. I'll say need it, right? Good. And chesed you can do for anybody. You give chesed to your spouse. You give chesed to, the smile you give to the person at the checkout person at Wegmans, right? Chesed is visiting someone in the hospital. Chesed is also, serving a meal at the soup kitchen, right? So it's all in between, right?
Rabbi, does tzedakah have to be money?
Well, I mean,
we translate it to money?
Here it seems like, the rabbis in the Talmud here are defining it as money, right?
Yeah. Because there's much tzedakah that's done that isn't money.
Well, maybe that's chesed.
Okay.
Right. And because why is money important? Why do you think they would define it only as money here? Why is that? And even, okay, we could say like material things because, they might have lived in a society that didn't have paper, I
I
think
was
the
just
rabbis
going
are
to
like,
ask that. I was like, can it also be like goods,
right.
or when you
Yeah.
actually give like food to the
Yes,
food kitchen?
yes,
Is
I would
that
say yes, because
okay?
like in the Bible, they didn't have a full monetary system.
Paper, yeah.
Maybe by the time of the Talmud they did. I would have to ask, you have to ask an archaeologist or something. But often, you're in the Bible, your income was your sheep, right?
Right.
Right. But so it could be okay, we could say in kind, but giving of your time is not tzedakah. I think they're saying, right? Giving of your wealth. Let's say it that way. Giving of your wealth is tzedakah. And why is that an important distinction? Yeah, Mary.
Sorry, so because it gives somebody else liberty to do what they want.
Yeah.
Right, like, I mean, so food is important, but most of the time you're gonna eat it, right? You're hungry, you
Right,
eat it,
right,
right?
right.
Shelter, you're gonna, right? But I think the thing, about a monetary money is that
Yeah.
it gives that person liberty.
Yeah. Good. Right.
And
Right. I mean,
yeah.
not to get too
giving-
political again. Not to get too political again, but like Andrew Yang was talking about the minimum income, right, during the primaries, right? It gives people the choice to how they live their life, and good, rather than food stamps or this program or that program or whatever, right? Good. Sorry, who was saying something? Jen. Yeah.
What about giving of like your skills or expertise, like Doctors Without Borders? Is that
Right.
tzedakah, or is that just chesed?
Well, it could be, because it's kind of, you're giving the opportunity cost, right? To be economic about it, right? Maybe, but I think it's something important about money, because giving of your wealth diminishes your wealth, and it's saying that that there needs to be wealth distribution in our society.
Yeah,
Right?
I was going to say something else that I was trying to think of was the fact that tzedakah is required.
Yeah.
It almost makes me think that you're not giving your money. You're reminded that that wasn't your money.
Thank you.
Whereas when you're giving your time, when you're giving your services, I am giving something of mine to you. I'm giving my skills.
Right, that's chesed. Right.
And that's hesed, or chesed, and I'm reminded that my money, my goods, not all of it was mine. I just happened to have it for a bit, but it is yours.
Good. And if you read chapter 25 of Leviticus, which is the chapter about the sabbatical and the Jubilee years, it says pretty specifically, actually, what you have is God's. You're just kind of the tenant farmer for God. And maybe that's right. Thank you, Mark. That giving of your wealth is reminding you that it's actually not yours. That you are just God's the landlord, and you're the tenant. God did, or in Jewish way, God gave it to you as a safekeeping, right? I think that's important. Nancy, yes.
It can be a hard sell to the capitalist society that we live in.
Hard sell to what? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
This could be a hard sell to the capitalist society we live in.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But
if you're going to give away, then why should I bother being the CEO and working hard? And, but
right, but it's not about right. So yeah, it's funny. I've been reading with my study partner. We've been reading some medieval texts that are really against working hard. Like, they're very anti-capitalist. I mean, these were written 1,000 years ago, that nobody talked about capitalism, but it was like, working too hard takes you away from studying and takes you away from doing the other mitzvot that you should be doing. And you should only work hard enough that you can feed your family, right? And have enough to give to others, right? And being, you might see this later in another lesson, but like, being rich in Judaism or being poor in Judaism, it's not a value statement. Being rich just gives you the opportunity to do more mitzvot, like tzedakah, and gives you the opportunity to help out a poor person, being poor is not because there's something morally wrong with you, right? As you know, some versions of American religion would say, right? And even the poor person has to give tzedakah because someone's always poorer, right? Okay, let's go to a contemporary text again. Okay.
Rabbi, can Gail introduce herself since?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Welcome back, Gail. Or welcome. I'm glad you're here, Gail. So you you have to introduce yourself and say why you're taking this class.
Hi, I'm Gail. I'm taking this class because, well, let's see, honestly, last year I took the Musar class and I thought that was, it was kind of, I've told people like it was kind of life-changing for me. I learned a lot, and sometimes you have to sacrifice a little bit of time. If you want to get something out of it, you got to put something into it. So I kind of wanted to sign up for something this year, and the timing initially just wasn't good, but this timing works way better, and so it's time. I mean, social justice is what this 2020 is all about. So, you know, hopefully we can all do something together to make it better, to make the world better.
Thank you. So let's talk about making the world better. Let's look at a contemporary text again. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because you'll see in these lessons we'll never be able to get to all the texts, and you can read those on your own if you want. So let's go to text number 7, which someone will have to say what page it's on in the student book. I only have the teacher one in front of me, but it comes from this book, There Shall Be No Needy by Rabbi Jill Jacobs, which is a great source book for these kinds of things.
Page 10.
Page 10, thank you. So Rabbi Jill Jacobs is the executive director of Teruah, which is a great Jewish social justice group. So
I'm wrong, 33, sorry.
33, okay. We're on text number 7. So we're going to read about where this term tikkun olam comes from, okay? So someone like to read.
I'll do it, Rabbi.
Please.
Rather than reject this term altogether, I suggest a reimagining of tikkun olam that combines the 4 understandings of the term we have seen in traditional texts. The Aleinu concept of tikkun as the destruction of any impurities that impede the full manifestation of the divine presence. 2, the literalist midrashic understanding of tikkun olam as the establishment of a sustainable social order. And 3, the rabbinic willingness to invoke tikkun olam as a justification for changing laws likely to create chaos. And 4, the Lurianic belief that individual actions can affect the fate of the world as a whole.
Right, so these are kind of the 4 definitions of tikkun olam from Jewish tradition. You know what? I'm going to let you read that on your own because I'm seeing we're running out of time here. I don't want to keep us all night. I want to look at text number 9 because this is great biblical basis of the things we're talking about, and then I'm going to end with Martin Luther King. Okay. I'll read text number 9. I love this text also as talking about kind of is versus ought, how things are versus how things ought to be. Okay. So it comes toward the end of the Torah. There shall be no needy among you, since the Lord your God will bless you in the land that the Lord your God is giving you as a hereditary portion. If only you heed the Lord your God and take care to keep all this instruction that I enjoin upon you this day. So this is Moses telling the people of Israel before they enter into the land of Israel at the end of the Torah, okay? For the Lord your God will bless you as God promised you. You will extend loans to many nations, but require none yourself. You will dominate many nations, but they will not dominate you. So it's giving them like, you're going to be mighty if you live up to this, right? If, I don't know if the if ever happened, right? If, however, there is a needy person among you, one of your kinsmen in any of your settlements in the land that the Lord your God is giving you, do not harden your heart and shut your hand against your needy kinsman. Wait a minute. Didn't verse 1 say, or verse 4 say that there won't be any needy? And now it's saying if there is a needy? Hold that thought. Rather, you must open your hand and lend him sufficient for whatever he needs. Beware lest you harbor the base thought, the 7th year, the year of remission is approaching, so that you are mean to your needy kinsman and give him nothing, meaning every 7 years debts are off in the Torah. All personal debts are off. So they're saying, like, let's say someone asks for a loan in year 6. What are you supposed to do? You say, why would I give him a loan in year 6? The next year, his debt will be off. Debt will be canceled. So the Torah is saying, no, that's hatred, right? You're not being kind, okay? He will cry out to the Lord against you, and you will incur guilt. Now, in Deuteronomy especially, but other places in the Torah, God is the one who protects the poor. God is the one who hears their cries. The prophets talk about the widow, the orphan, and the stranger, right? God is the one, this is meant to pick up on, God heard the cries of the slaves in Egypt, right? It's meant to, you're meant to remember that when you see this verse. God hears the cries of the poor. Give to him readily and have no regrets when you do so. For in return, the Lord your God will bless you in all your efforts and all your undertakings. For there will never cease to be needy ones in your land, which is why I command you, open your hand to the poor and needy kinsmen in your land. So, verse 4 says, there shall be no needy. And verse 7 says, if there is a needy person. And verse 11 says, there'll never cease to be needy people. What's that all about?
I like to think of it kind of opposite, where it's because there will always be needy people. Then go to 7 where it's when you encounter needy people, this is what you do in the hopes of getting so there are no needy people. Meaning, like, if you act this way, there won't be any needy people. Now, obviously, not everyone always acts like this because that's an ideal world, and that's that, I don't know, calculus curve that we're never getting to.
Right, exactly.
But I don't know.
Yeah, isn't there some other concept about it's embracing the imperfection of Judaism or something like that? Like we're always trying to make things more perfect, but we never get there.
Right, that's exactly right. And I think, and I talked about that a little bit before. The is versus ought, the way things are versus the way things ought to be, and we're never going to be at the way things ought to be. Only God has that power. I think this is what it's saying, right? God is the one who ultimately hears the cries of the poor. We attempt to, right? But it doesn't mean you can throw up your hands and say this is all too frustrating because we're never going to get there, right? And, I like to say in American life, it talks about in the preamble to the Constitution, in order to create a more perfect union, right? It's always the process of getting there. We're not there yet, right? Now, I don't like the word perfect because that makes us think like, there's no such thing as perfection, but Gail, yeah.
Yeah, so and maybe you were just saying this, but it made me think like, maybe God is sort of saying, I got this, guys. Like, I'm making sure this is okay. But every once in a while, I might be testing somebody, or there might be something out there that looks to you like there's a needy person out there, and maybe you should just think of it that way. But I don't know.
No, I think yes, the needy. Well, I'll say it this way. I'll put it in Musar speech. Musar is, the Jewish text about virtuous living. But the needy person in front of you that you see is your test to so that you can do the mitzvah of tzedakah and chesed. right? The needy person in front of you is your obligation, right? And so, you know, can we say that God's putting that test in front of you? In some ways you could say that, but it doesn't matter metaphysically what it is. It's just, that's what it is. The needy person in front of you is your job. The needy, the capital N needy, is our society's job, right? So that's the difference between tzedakah and tzedek. The tzedakah is your individual obligation right now. The tzedek is our collective obligation, right? So let's end with text number 11. So we can, because I think, you know, Martin Luther King is a good example in America of someone who read the Bible closely and worked for justice as a religious person, right? Not as a Jew, of course, but as a religious person, because of this, of what we're talking about, right? Someone want to read this? So, Mark, go ahead.
Dr. Martin Luther King, Beyond Vietnam, A Time to Break Silence.
Right, and this speech was very, very controversial. And people, I think people in the Black community, civil rights leaders, were very mad at him for doing this. A lot of Jews were mad. This was put into a book of different religious leaders speaking against the Vietnam War, including Abraham Joshua Heschel was in that book. But this was this speech against the Vietnam War, and it's not specifically what we're reading here, but a lot of people said, well, why are you mixing apples and oranges, right? So go.
A true revolution of values will soon cause us to question the fairness and justice of many of our past and present policies. On the one hand, we are called to play the Good Samaritan on life's roadside, but that will be only an initial act. One day, we must come to see the whole Jericho Road must be transformed so that men and women will not be constantly beaten and robbed as they make their journey on life's highway. True compassion is more than flinging a coin to a beggar. It is not haphazard and superficial. It comes to see that an edifice,
a building.
It comes to see that an edifice which produces beggars needs restructuring. A true revolution of values will soon look uneasy on the glaring contrast of poverty and wealth and say, this is not just.
Good. So that's our, that's going to be our exploration in these 9 more sessions about tzedek, chesed, and tzedakah, but especially about the tzedek, the justice, and how what is the society that Judaism envisions. But you know, again, we could talk about specific policies, things like that. That's not off the table to talk about, but you can't, and I should have said this at the beginning, our Jewish texts are not going to tell us whether we should support, you know, what the tax rates should be and what, you know, what's the best way in the American context to eradicate poverty, but it will tell us that poverty is wrong. And our Jewish texts are not going to tell us what the policy should be at the border, but our Jewish text will tell us that loving the stranger is a mitzvah, right? And the stranger in the Torah meant the immigrant specifically. Our Jewish texts are not going to tell us what the police, you know, what police reforms we should support, but it will tell us that we're all created in the image of God, and therefore police have to treat everyone the same, right? And so the Torah is political and it's not political. You see what I mean? And so I want to have all these conversations and the bigger conversations. Okay. And so I'm looking forward to studying this Torah with you as we go along. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just got Vicky's email, so I'll send you guys a note. We're going to meet next week. And actually, Rabbi, did you want to say we have a candle lighting?
Yes.
Actually,
So,
do you want to mention that?
Right. So during Hanukkah, which next week's class will be the first night of Hanukkah, unless you all rebel against me. But I think, 7:30 at night will give you enough time to celebrate Hanukkah at sundown. But every night during the week, Temple B'nai Or will be lighting candles in a public way, but also online. You could light with us online at 6 p.m. Except there's a few exceptions. You'll see the schedule. So that night next week, when it's at the 10th, you can go online at 6 p.m. and light with us, and then we'll study at 7:30.
Sounds good.
All right. And I hope I hope these texts, I'll not say this, as I said to Mary, a Jew shouldn't be comfortable. I hope these texts will continue to stir us and keep us up at night to think about justice. So have a good night. And if you were just trying out the class tonight, I hope you'll join us next week. If you need help with the fee for the course, please let me know, privately, and we can help you out. So have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Great to see you. Thanks, Gail, for joining from Iowa.
It's good to see you, Gail.
Be safe out there.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night.